And all of a sudden you had, when they took a break, he locked the door of the assembly room so they couldn't get in. And he said, oh, I think there needs to be some repairs in that room. Maybe y'all can assemble later. And that was kind of his way of saying, no, I'm not going to, if you're declaring you're a National Assembly of France, I'm not even going to let you assemble. I'm not even going to let you get in the room. So that clearly didn't do a lot to make these guys, or in particular these guys, any happier. People are hungry. These people are living lavish. The tennis court oath. Tennis court oath, where they proclaimed, not are we only the National Assembly of France, but even more than that, we all pledged to not stop until we create a Constitution of France. A Constitution of France. So they went from being a National Assembly to essentially morphing into a Constituent Assembly. We were going to create a Constitution. Let me write that a little bit neater. Constitution for France. For France. And they had sympathy from some elements of the clergy and the nobility. So eventually Louis XVI, he kind of saw the writing on the wall. He didn't like people are angry. And, every time he tries to mess with them, they only get angrier and they only go to even more extreme measures. So he, just to kind of make it seem like he's going along, he said, okay, that's cool, guys, whatever y'all want to do. Yeah, maybe I'm open to it. We are in an emergency and maybe it is unreasonable. I have been a little bit unreasonable. So he lets them be. He lets them assemble again. But while that's happening, people start to notice that troops are converging on Paris. Troops, let me write that down. Troops converging on Paris. And they're obviously being sent there by the king. And not only are they just any troops, a lot of the actual troops, even though they are French troops, they're under the authority of France's military, they're actually foreign troops. So if you think about it, these would be the ideal types of troops to put. Jacques Necker, he told Louis, and he was sympathetic to the Third Estate, to the plight of the Third Estate, right? Cap of the government's budget, then the state of the people of France. They're in this, they're starving. Why don't you do that a little bit? But Louis XVI, instead of taking his advice, he fired his tennis court oath. Louis XVI has fired his advisor. People are going hungry. They're generally going hungry. People in Paris said, you know what? The king is going to try to suppress us again. This is no good. We have to, and especially if he does it with troops, we have to arm ourselves. So they stormed the Bastille. So this right here is a picture of the Bastille. This is the Bastille. And this is it's most famous, when you first learned about it, or maybe this is the first time you're learning about it, is, they put political prisoners there and they freed the political prisoners. But in reality, there were only 7 prisoners in the Bastille. So it's not like thousands and thousands of political prisoners were being held there and they were freed. The real value of the Bastille to the revolutionaries, we could say, is that there were weapons there. There was a major arms cache there. There were weapons. And so by storming the Bastille and getting the weapons, they all of a sudden could essentially fend off any type of threat that the troops would have. But this is also kind of the very beginning of the real chaos of the French Revolution. And as we're going to see over the next several years, the chaos only gets worse and worse. This is almost, on a lot of levels, a lot worse than the American Revolution, because what actually happened in the cities and what fellow Frenchmen started to do to each other was really, on many levels, barbaric. And you actually saw it here for the first time, where the governor of the Bastille, the guy who was in charge of it, you had the standoff between the troops. And he called for a ceasefire because he's like, oh, there's too much bloodshed. But once the revolutionaries got to him, they stabbed him, they cut his head off, and then they put it on a pike. And then they went back to the mayor of Paris, they shot him. So clearly things were really getting out of hand. But this is kind of, most people associate the storming of the Bastille as kind of the landmark event of the French Revolution. And even today, people celebrate Bastille Day. And that is July 14th, 1789. And so just to give you a sense of how quickly all of this happened, the convocation of the Estates General, that was in May. The tennis court oath was in June, and then in July you have the storming of the Bastille, and then in August, just to kind of complete the idea that we are definitely in a revolutionary period, in August the National Assembly that that started off at the tennis courts in the third estate, they declared their equivalent of the Declaration of Independence. They declared their declaration of the rights of man, and of the citizen, which was essentially their version of the Declaration of Independence. And it's essentially put everything into question of, what is life, liberty, and pursuit of, I'm using words from the American Revolution, but this was their Declaration of Independence. It wasn't a constitution. It was just a statement of the things that they think need to govern any type of constitution or country, or the ideas that any country should be based on. So I'm going to leave you there. This was we've really now started the French Revolution, and now you're going to see that over the next several years, it's only going to get bloodier and bloodier and even more complex. And when everything is said and done, it's actually not going to end that well in terms of giving people liberty.